Inside a deafening bar, chaos reigned and bodies moved like demons in a frenzy. Lucien had taken advantage of the brief window, while his bodyguard Kale went to the company to report security matters to his father. He bribed the driver and slipped out quietly. What he didn't expect was that the moment he stepped into the restroom, a few lecherous thugs would corner him in a dim, dead-end corridor. Well, well, where did this little young master wander off from? Pretty as can be. One man, reeking of smoke and alcohol, pinned Lucien against the wall, his gaze sticky and foul like a sewer rat. His hand roamed Lucien's waist without restraint, even slipping under the hem of his hoodie. Dressed this provocatively, coming to a place like this? Isn't it just asking to be played with? Be a good boy. Tonight will be very memorable for you. Get off me! Don't touch me! Do you even know who I am? Lucien's whole body went rigid, disgust and fear clamping tight around his heart. He struggled desperately, but someone raised in comfort had no chance of breaking free from several grown men restraining him. Smack! The leader slammed his palm against the wall beside Lucien's head, grinning obscenely as he leaned toward his neck. Who you are doesn't matter. Now that you've fallen into my hands tonight, you'll behave and… Bang! Before he could finish, a dark figure flickered into existence like a ghost. Then came the sickening crack of bone snapping. Ah! My arm! The thug who had been touching Lucien had his entire arm twisted backward into an unnatural angle. He screamed as he was flung across the corridor, crashing hard into a trash bin at the far end. Lucien's legs gave out, and he collapsed into a broad chest carrying a familiar chill and a faint scent of tobacco. It was Kale. Dressed in a black suit, the killing intent in Kale's eyes was so dense it felt as though the air itself might freeze. One arm locked Lucien tightly against him, while the other drew a tactical baton from his side. Without a single wasted word, he moved with ruthless efficiency, dropping the remaining men in a matter of seconds until they lay sprawled on the ground, groaning and broken. Kale walked up to the thug leader with the broken arm. His black leather shoe came down hard on the man's chest, his voice cold as a blade dipped in poison. Which hand did you use to touch him? Before the man could answer, Kale ground his heel into the thug's other hand. The corridor filled with another shrill scream. Expression unchanged, Kale turned away, removed his suit jacket, and wrapped the trembling Lucien tightly in it. Then he lifted him into his arms and strode out of that filthy place without looking back. Back home, steam filled the bathroom off the bedroom. Lucien stood under the shower. The water turned scalding hot. He bit down hard on his lip, scrubbing frantically at his waist where that thug had touched him. The skin was already rubbed raw, flushed red, even slightly broken, yet it still felt filthy to him, so disgusting it made him want to retch. The delayed fear surged over him like a rising tide. At last, he couldn't hold it in anymore. He threw the bath sponge aside, crouched in the corner of the bathroom, and broke down in uncontrollable sobs. Click. The bathroom door opened. Kale walked in without even changing his clothes. He shut off the shower, grabbed a large towel, and scooped up the trembling young master from the floor, wrapping him tightly. Kale! Kale! Clinging as if to a lifeline, Lucien locked his arms around Kale's neck, burying his face into the crook of it as he cried out loud. He touched me. It was disgusting. So disgusting. I was so scared. Kale's heart felt as though it were being crushed in a ruthless grip. He held Lucien close, letting the dampness from his body soak through his own shirt. Lowering his head, he pressed gentle kisses to Lucien's wet hair and forehead again and again, his large hand stroking down his back in steady reassurance. It's over, young master. It's over. I've ruined their hands. No one will ever touch you again. Kale's voice was incredibly soft, carrying a quiet authority that could calm everything in an instant. But it's dirty here, Lucien sobbed, pointing to the reddened skin at his waist. A shadow flickered through Kale's eyes. He lowered his head and pressed his warm lips directly against the inflamed skin. It wasn't a kiss, but something tender and deep careful, as if he were covering that place with his own warmth, bit by bit. Not dirty. Cale lifted his head, his thumb gently brushing away the tears on Lucien's face. His gaze was deep, unwavering. I've covered it for you. Now it carries only my scent. You're clean, young master. Wrapped in that overwhelming sense of safety, Lucien's sobbing gradually eased. He went limp in Cale's arms, leaning against him like a small kitten that had finally found its way home. Yet just as Lucien's breathing finally steadied and his tears subsided, he suddenly felt it. The arms holding him were slowly tensing, the muscles turning rigid bit by bit. The warmth that had filled the room moments ago dropped sharply, the atmosphere turning cold enough to freeze. Cale carried Lucien back to the bedroom, dressed him in clean sleepwear, then stood over him, looking down at the still slightly dazed young master. Every trace of gentleness had vanished from his face, replaced by a cold, controlled severity. The comforting is over. Now, young master, we settle this. Lucien's heart lurched. Instinctively, he shrank back. Settle what? I was the one who got bullied, and you're still going to scold me. Scold you? Cale's voice dropped, heavy with pressure. Did I not warn you that that district was dangerous, that you were not to go there? Did I not say that with me away today, you were not to step outside the door? By the last sentence, his voice rose sharply, making Lucien flinch. What if I had been 5 minutes late, Lucien? Do you have any idea what you almost went through today? Cale knew all too well that words alone would not be enough. This pampered young master would make the same mistake again. To eliminate the possibility of it ever happening, he chose to carve the boundary in pain. He seized Lucien's wrist, yanked him forward, then pressed him down onto the bed, flipping him over and pinning him in place. Cale, what are you doing? Let go of me! Lucien panicked, kicking and struggling wildly. Smack! Without warning, a heavy strike landed squarely across Lucien's backside. Even through the thin silk of his sleep pants, the sharp sound echoed through the bedroom. Ah, it hurts! Lucien cried out, tears bursting forth again. Running off behind my back, should you be punished? Smack! Another blow, just as forceful, making his whole body jerk. Going to a place like that without even bringing a bodyguard. Should you be punished? Smack! Treating your own safety like a joke, driving me nearly insane. Should you be punished? Smack! 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 This time, Cale's anger was real and unrestrained. One hand pinned down Lucien's flailing arms, while the other struck again and again without mercy. Each blow cut through the air, fast and precise. In less than 2 minutes, Lucien was sobbing uncontrollably, barely able to catch his breath, his voice hoarse even as he tried to beg. Won't run again. Cale, I was wrong. I really was. It hurts. Please stop. Cale's raised hand finally halted midair. He closed his eyes, drawing in a slow breath tinged with the faint scent of Lucien's body wash, forcing down the surge of anger and the ache beneath it. Then he pulled the trembling, tear-soaked Lucien into his arms, holding him tightly. Remember this lesson. If there's a next time, I'll break your legs and chain you up. 8 in the evening. The dining room. The table was filled with an elaborate dinner prepared by the household chef. Lucien glanced at Cale seated beside him, and all his grievances came rushing back at once. The young master's temper flared again. He shoved his plate away, the base scraping harshly against the tabletop. I'm not eating, Lucien pouted, turning his head aside. You might as well beat me to death. Why bother feeding me? Cale looked at the sulking young master and let out a quiet sigh. He pulled the plate back, scooped up a spoonful of fragrant seafood fried rice, blew on it to cool it slightly, then drew Lucien closer, chair and all. If you don't eat, your stomach will act up again tonight. Turn around. His voice was still firm, but the earlier harshness was gone. I won't. You're a tyrant. All you do is bully me. Lucien kept his head turned, eyes still red. Cale didn't get angry. He reached out with his calloused hand and gently caught Lucien's chin, turning his face back toward him despite the resistance. Seeing the swollen eyelids and the lips still stubbornly pursed, a trace of indulgent fondness flickered in his eyes. He brought the spoon to Lucien's lips. "Open." Lucien clamped his mouth shut, glaring at him, resistance written all over his face. Cale raised a brow. A hint of warning crept into his tone, though his other hand gently rubbed behind Lucien. "Doesn't your butt hurt any more? Want to be punished again?" That landed with immediate effect. Lucien stiffened, instinctively reaching back to cover his butt, his eyes brimming with tears again from sheer grievance. Under that quiet threat, he had no choice but to open his mouth and swallow the spoonful. Then he chewed the shrimp as if it were Cale himself. Watching him, Cale couldn't help the faint smile that touched his eyes. With deliberate patience, he fed him one spoonful after another. Lucien glared at him the whole time, yet still swallowed obediently. Halfway through, he muttered under his breath, "You hit too hard today." Cale's hand paused slightly. "Only when it's hard enough will you remember." "Lucien, you have no idea. When I pushed that door open and saw someone touching you, how badly I wanted to kill them. I can't afford the consequences of losing you." The near confession caught Lucien off guard. The flush on his face spread all the way to his ears, his earlier defiance collapsing like a punctured balloon. He obediently opened his mouth, swallowing the last spoonful Cale offered. Then, in a small, awkward voice, he murmured, "Then, tonight you have to put medicine on for me." Gently. Cale looked at him, something deep and possessive rippling through his gaze, threaded with unmistakable tenderness. "All right. After dinner I'll carry you upstairs and take care of it myself.